right. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. My name is Matt Jarrett, and I'm here to talk to you guys about using AI to rebuild the React Chicago site. The only reason I'm talking like this now is for the people who are watching the recording. Everybody else who's been in this meetup, we've been chatting for a little while here, so I just want to give like a quick intro to recording visitors here. But essentially what I've done here is to give some context, I ran into the reactchicago.org site a few months ago, and to Bill, who just is our organizer here, mentioned I was with one of the co-organizers, and he showed me the React Chicago site, and I was really interested in it because I think it's really actually unique that a Meetup has its own site. But then I was like, well, let's see if we can make this like cooler and more Chicago-esque. I was coming off of a Chicago boat tour recently, and I was like, I got to get some Chicago flags floating around in here. So there's some stuff on here that I wanted to do. To reach out to Bill, and I was just like, well, we can do all of this, like, and we can redo this on my own, and like I could show it to you, and it'll look cool, and we'll do this, or we can make this as a topic for Meetup. So this is why we're here, is to just kind of like talk about this. I have a couple slides prepared. Let me see if I can flip through. So our agenda here is I'm going to introduce myself. We'll talk about me, my experience. We'll talk about the current site, just kind of like a quick breakdown. This isn't going to be like a deep like design breakdown or anything like that. It's just like hey, how can we like take what's already there and put it into AI, or kind of like take the things that we want to do, put it in with use some AI tools, and rebuild this and like have a site up and running in the world. And then we'll do kind of that, and then the like how we're going to do that with the technology that I like use and work with in my day-to-day life every single day. And then we'll like get into it and do a ton of AI stuff and float around. And if you're off screen or you're watching at home in the future, this should be available for everyone to kind of do on their side, on the side, if they want to, just to kind of enjoy how things are kind of like being played out on my screen, and you can do it on your own. And then there's some time at the end for Q&A. And we were talking earlier before the recording started that we're just going to go ahead and say, if you have a question, come off mute, scream at me, tell me what's right, tell me what's wrong. We'll have some questions in the chat, and if anything comes into the chat, I'll try and repeat the question. So if there's no chat in the recording, we'll kind of know what's going on. Okay, so who am I? What's the purpose of all this? Again, I said my name is Matt Jarrett. You can find me on LinkedIn. This is the same picture that I have there. This is my most active social network. And the big thing here, since we're in Chicago, I do want to call out this big box here. I'm actually located in the very far south suburbs, 1,200 miles south in Austin, Texas, actually. I'm here with my wife and daughter. And my wife is from Gurnee. And I was talking with Bill earlier, and my in-laws currently live out in Antioch. So I spend probably 2 months a year in the Chicago area. I was at a Vercel Chicago event. I want to get more involved in the Chicago kind of scene. And I found this meetup, and I was like, oh, wow, this site needs to work. Let's do it. Like, I want to meet some folks. I want to like network some fellow people. So this is kind of why I'm here, even though I'm not actually from the Chicago area. I got to do a chance to do this virtually. Hopefully in the future, get to spend more time up there with you guys and do an in-person thing. About me in Austin, I'm actually from Cincinnati before, moved to Austin 12 years ago to learn to code and work in startups. A part of that process is like, as we all know, you don't just learn to code in a night and then like go get a job. So I had to do a lot of like ugly, hard work to build up my skills and to go, learn how things work over the years. So I started as a contractor for a number of different companies. So I worked for Cratejoy was one, as a contractor with Techstars. I was kind of a freelancer for a number of years. Then I went on to work at a company called the Zebra. So if you go to thezebra.com, that is like a car insurance for kayak type of thing. I was there for just under 4 years, and then I went to Atlassian. I was there for just under 5 years. So officially as a developer, I think you could call it about 10 years as a developer, mostly on the front end. So where all this points to is I decided that I want to learn to be how sales work and what things in sales look like. So I moved over to working at Vercel, and my job is a sales engineer. So if you haven't ever heard what a sales engineer does, there's also like, it's probably because you maybe have heard like 25 different titles for it. So like solutions engineer, like systems engineer, things like that, like all sorts of different names for it. And the idea here is like, it's my job to help folks who are purchasing Vercel at a large scale. So purchasing like our enterprise package, we all can purchase Vercel with a credit card, but like and have like a smaller kind of instance of Vercel. But if you want to purchase it for the large scale enterprise, whether you're a small business or a very large company as well, this is where I go and help get the technical like solutions created for those customers. So that involves doing demos, that involves talking about like different solutions with, using different versions of open source frameworks and things like that, such as React and Next, which we'll talk about in a second. And also making sure that like it's a great deal for both sides. So working inside of the deal is where I specialize. So I'm really excited about this, really excited to work in Vercel. And all of this points to literally 10 years of my whole career has pointed to just being in the front end. So when I see React Chicago, I'm pumped because it's like, this is awesome. These are my people. There's, React meetups all over the world. This is, where a lot of my life has been. And I want to make sure that everybody's feeling pumped about this too. So what I want to do is talk about like a breakdown of, well, let's make this like for people like us who are excited about front end frameworks and front end development, like how do we make this like easy for folks to get involved with us and see what's going on? So here's where I want to kind of like take a look at this side and like kind of show like the basics of how this is built. And then we're going to talk about the packages that we're going to do to kind of like rebuild this and kind of like clean it up and build it in a different way. And then we'll just get into it. I anticipate that we'll probably spend a good, 20, 30 minutes in code and messing around. So this is just a couple more slides that we're going to stick through. So I'm actually going to write this down physically on a note to myself here. So make sure that we stay on track. So what I'm looking at here is we want to have a ton of Chicago. We want to have the colors of the flag. So the stars are, I'm just coming off of a boat tour, and it's the 4 Fs. It's fire, fair, something else. Somebody who's gone on the same boat tour with me. I'm missing an F. What is it? Fire, fair, something else. Essentially what we're wanting to do is model kind of like what you can see up here is like the React kind of logo with, instead of it being nothing in the middle, we're going to have a Chicago star in the middle. And then we're going to use, the same Chicago colors. But kind of the main thing on here is we have like 3 links down below, one for Netlify. I'm going to look in the chat. I bet somebody figured out what the 4th F is. Fort is what I'm missing. Thank you, Jack Howard there for us. Fort, I knew it was another F. So we want to have those 4 stars. That's what's sitting on top of my mind. We have two blue stripes, one for the river and one for the lake. But down here we have some links like to the O'Reilly Partner Program, a link to JetBrains, and to Netlify. So Netlify is similar to Vercel. And you can do a lot of the same things as over there. I just happen to work at Vercel, so we're going to use all Vercel tools, and we'll deploy this off into the world there. Let me see what else do we have. Teacher's pet, yeah. Thanks, Bill. I keep clicking on this, and I want to click on the chat. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. Let me move this over so I can keep an eye on the chat. Awesome. All right, so we've done these bottom 3 links, and I see mail. I see a link to Meetup. I see a link to Twitter, X. Maybe we'll change this, YouTube, and GitHub. So essentially what we need to do is like show folks what's going on with our site as quick as possible, show Chicago pride, and then possibly just like do some fun things. So the idea here is, how do we do this? And I thought about doing this myself. Again, I said this earlier, I thought about doing this myself as just kind of a person in the world. Like, let me go like make this better, and I'll send it to you and send it to Bill, and we'll deploy it, and I'll look cool and Vercel will look cool. But why would we do that? Like just me like going and designing something when we can use some different tools. And here's where we can maybe like, let's just lean on AI to do this, right? And there's some tools that Vercel offers that allows us to do this with AI in a very quick way. And it also like, we can kind of like combine our skill as developers with kind of like the quick thinking of AI, and like some like offload some of these like things that we don't really care about or like need to know all the nuance on. Let's offload that to AI, and we'll allow ourselves to think about like the stars and the colors and like how it's going to look. And I'm looking at this, and we've got, what is this, 8 links that we need to have in here. And maybe we can omit a link and turn it into like calling off to Meetup or like doing something interesting like that. To kind of like update this so people can go to reactchicago.org, they feel awesome and excited and like, oh, wow, this is a thriving community. So with that, before we go to do anything, we kind of need to know what technology we're going to use. Like, what are we actually going to do to build this thing? And the first thing that I want to call out here is this is React Chicago, right? So React is the front end of this, and React is like the largest framework in the entire world. I was considering talking about how great React is and how much we want to talk about this. But we all know this is why we're here, right? This would be jQuery Chicago if we were talking about something from, a different, type of framework. We want to work in React on the front end. But one thing that I'm noticing if I come back here is there's some stuff that's available to us, and we might not get through all of this today. We want to kind of reach out to this, but I'm like, well, if I want to have an email what I really want to do is basically just like see if I can maybe set up a form. Or I want to like call to the Twitter X API or the YouTube API and do some things. But if I do that, I don't necessarily want to do that on the client. I don't want to always do that on the client. I maybe want to do that on the back end or do some server logic, or maybe there's an API that talks about how far it is to the next meetup or something like that. So I know that I want to use something with a back end when I'm rebuilding this site. Okay. And this is kind of like the big light bulb moment here when we move on to the next kind of piece of this. And this is where Next.js comes in. So kind of the core of where all of what we're about to do when we break this open and get going on this is we're going to be using Next.js for this. And here's the idea is, and I think I can actually use a tool that's going to, oh, perfect. I'm actually going to annotate this, and this whole square here that we have, look at this. We're doing line annotations on this thing. This is awesome. All of this is available for us with Next. And I actually wanted to annotate this just to kind of prove a point, because a lot of folks come in and say like, well, Next does this, Next does that. And Next is like this pink square that's all around this. And let me change my color to, to blue, whatever it is. And we're actually just still going to be chilling in React though here in this square. This is still React over here. And this is where React Chicago is really going to, we're going to be feeling great because we're going to have a React driven site. And we don't actually have to deploy this to reactchicago.org if we don't want to. But on the back end here, we're going to make this node, right? So here's the two pieces. They're still going to be feeling great about themselves. And we'll talk more about this here in a second and like how all this comes together. But this connective tissue between these two pieces, this is where Next comes in. So I love this drawing that I just put on here. This is like a work of art, right? So here's where I'm going to have React, and we're going to sit and stay in React and do this, but I'm still going to have the option to drop over into Node. And I can do some let's go back to where I was just a second ago. Let's wipe all these. If I want to make this form, if I want to clear out of this, let me go to here. If I want to make this email thing, instead of emailing Bill directly, like with a mail to, and I open an email client and do all this stuff, I want a form in here or like an API call or something like that. So here's where it's actually really important that we have access to a backend without having to think about building an API, like building an API in Rails, pulling it off to Heroku or AWS or something like that, and then also having all these other things on the front end. We're actually just going to build it Next, and it's going to give us kind of everything that we need. All right. And the beauty of building with Next and giving us everything we need, like I talked about, is going to be React and Node, but also is the fact that there's so much tooling around there that's going to help us move extremely quickly. So this is where a lot of our stuff is going to come into, and I'm almost out of slides, so I promise I'll stop with the slide stuff, and we'll get into actual code here in a second. And these are the two pieces that we're going to work on the most as we kind of get into this. And this is where the first piece is we're going to be in v0.dev to start. And let me just, for everybody at home, it's v0. This is awesome. v0.dev is here. So if you guys want to go to v0.dev, it might redirect you to a new product called v0.dev/chat. So what we're going to do is we're going to start rebuilding this thing completely from scratch in AI with v0.dev. And the other thing we're going to do after that is we're maybe going to kind of experiment around and mess around with some other stuff in v0.dev/chat. And I just want everybody at home to realize just the artistry that comes in with using this highlighter on Zoom and a trackpad. Like this is really some skill. So, give it up for my drawing ability here. Okay, so let's clear our drawings. These are the two pieces that we're going to use. And what's going to happen here is what is AI doing with all this? What happens here? How does this all work? On the v0.dev side, so here on the left-hand side, let me pause. There's a couple chat options here. I think thanks, John. Appreciate you. Thanks, John, for the claps there. I don't know. Let me see if I can. Oh, actually, I know why I can't do this. Let me actually fix it here. See if I miss anybody else. Yeah, Jack was feeling the pain of being the teacher's pet. I get it. So v0.dev, what we've done is we've trained a large language model, so LLM, and oftentimes people think of this as they call it, it's just simply AI now, right? So there's a large language model. Or a model, what we'll call it, and it's been trained on design systems. So those design systems are with Shad CN, which we'll talk in detail about all these things here in just a bit, and also with Tailwind CSS, which we're going to get into Tailwind and do like smashful coding and do all these things. But what it's going to do is it's going to take like the best practices of all of these pieces and have some opinions and actually build this out for us and build pages out for us based on prompts. Okay, so again, left-hand side is v0.dev. We're going to kind of like back into like, this is a little bit slightly, this has been around for a few months, so you guys have maybe already played with this, but latest and greatest is v0.dev/chat. And I feel like for our purposes today, I want to show both just to kind of see the differences between the two and see kind of what it looks like to build with this. And again, our purpose here is to go back. Let's go back. Our purpose here is to take this page and make it look cool and make people as excited about this as possible. Possibly, if we have time, we'll do a form, or at least allow ourselves in the future to do a form. And we want to get it done quickly. Like, we don't need to be experts in this. Like, we just kind of want to get up and rolling and get it done. And let me go back to this. So let me pause for thoughts. Anybody have any questions? I know if you're at home watching this in the year 2074, and you're like, yeah, no, I have a question, but this has long been deleted or long gone. So let me clear my drawings. But if you have questions, hop off mute, let me know. If not, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop. Actually, I'm not going to stop share. I'm actually going to click out of this. If anybody needs my slides or anything like that, let me know. But what I'm going to do is just going to walk through a couple pieces here. So I'm going to go one tab to my right here, and I'm going to go to reactchicago.org. Again, this is what we're going to rebuild. And then I'm actually just going to go straight to v0.dev. It's going to redirect me to v0.dev/chat, but we know there's a little bit of a shortcut where I'm going to go back to the original v0. The reason why I want to go back to v0 is just to focus on getting the basics of our project set up, and then we'll go into chat and look at some of these things. But let me just walk through what v0.dev actually is. So again, we talked about this before. I was like, I can actually just type in with a prompt what a page should look like. And what this is going to do is it's going to provide to me Tailwind CSS based off of ShadCN, which is a UI library, and then it's going to go spit out to me React code. And it's going to give me a React application, basically. So my thinking, though, is we talked about Next a second ago. What I want to do is I'm going to take this React site and make it so we can go full stack, and I want to just get it up into the world as quick as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to make kind of like a version of this that might just be kind of quick and dirty. And then we're just going to iterate on this like crazy together and see if we can come up with something that we like that would be like kind of an alternate reactchicago.org site. We don't need to mess with DNS tonight or anything like that. We can perfect this later, but let's see how far we can get together and see what's going to happen. So if you guys are at v0.dev and you've gone to the chat, or you've gone from chat to regular v0, you can go that from equals chat. We're going to end up at chat in a minute, but I want to start here for just a couple seconds just to kind of show how cool this is. So what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to give a example prompt that comes in here, but I want to show some examples of what is already out there in the world. So some of you actually might already be doing this because these are new generations that have just come through. So if you go and do a generation, here's a marketplace almost of how v0 works and what we can do with v0. So what I'm going to do is these are new generations. I'm going to go to featured, and let me just I'll just kind of grab one of these at random. I'm going to grab this one kind of caught my eye early, is this reservation form. And what we can see here is this is a reservation form that all has every single piece of code that we need. And you can see that there are a couple iterations of this. So this is v0, 1, 2, 3, hence the name v0. But the first piece of this right here was please use green instead of blue. And we can actually see their first one was a modal that contains a list of the next tour dates for some band. Okay, so let's go ahead and if you want to, you can go back to all of the featured, so you can actually see some of these, and we can build off of these. But let's go build our own thing. This is Chicago, right? Like, we're gonna make our own React Chicago. We're gonna make our own application here. So what I'm gonna do with my prompt is a new website for the React Chicago meetup should have Chicago colors and the Chicago flag somewhere. Okay, very simple prompt. You'll see there's a couple things inside of here, and we're going to come back to this in a bit if we have time. And I'm going to show you there's an image option, and I'm going to make this public so anybody can use this. This feature here is going to change the theme, so we're going to talk about this in a second. And then this is basically like showing if we should go fast or we should go with quality, right? So here's where AI is going to do its thing. AI is going to say, I've been trained up on Next best practices. I've been trained up on ShadCN and Tailwind. I know what a meetup page should look like. I know what Chicago is because I'm AI and I've kind of been trained. So Wikipedia has been uploaded into me a million times. I get it. I know what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And you can see when we do that, there's a couple things that have come up. All right. First is our site is beginning to get built right in front of us. And now, oh, okay. React Chicago Meetup, join us as the latest updates and discussions. This this flag is up here. One of the things that we'll see when we get to chat is, and you've all probably read about and seen online over the years, is like AI is not perfect, right? It does like a lot of the starting things for us. It does some basic stuff for us, but like the Chicago flag is certainly not this thing. There's some nuance here that we need to go in and kind of clean this up. So this is the first one that I see. What's extremely interesting about this is I actually have two other options to choose from that are totally different. So this is kind of cool here. So we can actually see this one's a little bit more transactional that says all of these different things. And this is just like a page. So, and this is kind of cool. It has a contact form. This is kind of what I was alluding to earlier. There's a venue, the Chicago Tech Hub. There's ample parking. I've got a date here. A little the Chicago flag has made a thing again. Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub. This is all great. This looks a little more transactional, a little more like kind of corporate, almost in a way. And this is kind of neat. So one thing I want to look at is like this is actually, you know, it's a pretty narrow column here. What I'm going to do is I actually want to take a look at what the tablet size looks like. Okay, so V0's got this built out for me. I actually can go to full screen. And then inside of here, I can actually say like, okay, this is the one I want to fork, or like, this one's horrible, I need to report this, things like this. This is one of our projects at Vercel that's running on our AI SDK. If you are building AI applications on front ends, this is like the world's best example of this. This is using our AI SDK to spit out these whole things. What's incredible about this is, you know, moving these things around, I'm looking at different ones. And let's flip back out to desktop. It makes it a little bit easier to see. This one's actually, I actually like this one. This is cool. Maybe we'll do this one. But what's really neat about this, and we're seeing these pages, but what's interesting in this in like a screenshot is here when I click this code button, we can actually see this is what this all looks like. It's all writing code for me. And this is so neat because this is actually giving me the code and I'm able to copy this and drop it into a project right away. And I'm going to talk all about the code here in just a bit. But what we can look at here is I'm inside of component.jsx. And you can see I have a globals file. I'll lay it out in a tailwind. So this is giving me some ideas on how it should actually work inside of a Next.js project. And we're going to go build this and we're going to deploy this here in a minute. But all of this is written for me. Like I don't need to be an expert on how to like do boilerplate React stuff or boilerplate Next. All I need to be an expert on is what I want to build, right? And what I want to build is a new Meetup site. Really quick, I see a point inside of I see a question that's just come in. Before I do that, before I forget about this next piece, inside of V0, I can actually edit this code here and I can actually make this say Chicago. And I can go ahead and save these changes. And now you're going to be able to see that this is going to highlight back up to be Chicago in all caps over here. So I kind of have a full-fledged editor here on the right-hand side that's going to allow me to make changes. Let me pause really quick and see, let's read this question. Do you have extension for Visual Studio Code? Not at the moment, but we'll talk about getting this out of here. This is my next step is let's make some edits on this. Let's get this going. And then what we're going to do is take this out of here and drop it into a project and deploy it to Vercel. So in like 45 minutes or so, we're going to go from 0 to fully functioning website without really having to do much kind of like mental, not a lot of mental calories spent is the phrase I'm trying to get to. Okay. Like I just talked about, we're going to get this out of here and into an application. We'll mess around with the application. I'll talk about what's going on inside of it. And then we'll go forward and you know, see some of the things that we can do with Next. And then we'll see how we can deploy this with Vercel. But does anybody have any strong opinions on which one we should go for? So we have 3 options down here below. Let me pop back into the full canvas. I kind of want to eliminate this. This one's a little bit boring. But you know, like it's kind of V0's job to show us like a whole bunch of different options. I really like this one. This one I'm really drawn to. For whatever reason, I think it's cool because we can actually show a bunch of upcoming events. We can do the join the community here and we could drop a form into here. And then we could actually very easily turn this into, you know, putting 4 stars inside of this call to action, or 4 little React logos or something like that. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we can do with this. Put a big Chicago picture here. This one I like as well. It's very similar to this with the colors. Upcoming Meetup. I don't know. Does anybody have any very strong or sponsors? This actually, you know what? I kind of like this one. Does anybody have any strong opinions on which one we should use? Actually, Bill, let me call you out really quick. I actually kind of like this one. Any thoughts? Which section we should go down?
I do like this.
1, 2, 3. This one,
Yeah.
or do you or A, B, or C?
The- I like the colors
Mm-hmm.
and and that part of it. So that is intriguing for this part.
Mm-hmm. I like this one.
Whereas with the other ones, they're yeah, like you said, they're very
Mm-hmm.
plain and
Yeah, a little
that.
more plain. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and you speak of color. It's a great point that you brought up on colors. And this is what's neat is if you are kind of building a lot of front ends out like repeatedly, like I'm doing front end after front end after, I'm doing this all the time, right? And I want to have a theme that comes out. What's neat about this is, and I'm going to come back to this here in just a quick second. What I can do is I can actually switch out from this theme. Right now, we're in the default theme. I don't know if it's actually going to show up very well in this, but I'm actually going to go to a different theme completely. Since I told it to do the Chicago colors, I don't think that it's actually going to do. Oh, there we go. So now I can actually see. So I'm going to come out of this and I can go to Emerald or I can go to Windows 98. And what's going to happen is it's going to change the font in the colorway. So I can go now to daylight. I can go to midnight, which is like, kind of a dark look, pastel. So this is kind of say, okay, now I know I'm going to do deep C for all of my pages, and every single time V0 is going to give me deep C. So what I can also do is I can actually say like, you know what, like, I don't really want any of these. I want React Chicago. The React Chicago brand is this. What I can say is I'm now inside of this, and I'm going to go to a new theme, and let's just call this React Chicago. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save and continue. And what's really cool about this is a theme inspired by React Chicago. So what I can say is my font, I actually want it to be, a Remo. And you can see my changes are going on over here. And I want my sub font to be Chivo, whatever it is. Let's make them both Chivo just because it has Chicago in the first, 3 letters, right? And I want my radius, Chicago's cold and hard place. We want 0 radius on these. And you can see, you might not be able to see, let me zoom in just a touch. You can actually see like this is the radius goes away here. And I'll bump this back up just for conversation's sake, just to see if we can get anything. And you can see these are now curving in, right? So small things like this is how I'm actually going to be able to like build a design system. And I can actually save this and call this something else. So I can generate this theme. I can copy this code and take this code out. So like I don't have to be an expert in like date pickers and design systems. I can just use this to build stuff for me, which is really, really neat. Let's go ahead and generate this theme just for fun. Let me pause here. Oleg made a Vercel account linked to GitHub and created an next React template project, next boilerplate. I don't see a prompt anywhere. So you want to be in v0.dev. We'll get into like making stuff like that. Where we are now is we're in v0.dev. So you can see we're inside of this page here, and this is exclusively, let me go to here. This is going to be exclusively web-based for now. So v0.dev, and I'm going to go to from chat. So a little confusing. You might see v0.dev.chat now that you're in Vercel. What I've done, and we're going to get into chat here in just a second, I've gone to just plain old v0.dev just to kind of get the lay of the land on how v0 works and how things kind of like operate. So next thing I want to do is we talked like let's just go on a little bit of a side tangent here. I want to make I'm dedicated to this layout of our old page here. What I want to do is I'm going to take a screenshot of this and just say like, okay, I really love this flow of this page. Pick any page that you want to pick. I really, really, really love it. What I'm going to do is I took a screenshot and I'm actually just going to drop it into this and I can say like recreate this page. And I dropped in this screenshot and I can go ahead and update this in there. Let me while this is generating. When you get over to v0.dev, let me know, and you can see the prompt and kind of follow along with this. So you can see in really no time at all, we actually could just remake our old site if we wanted to. I think this is actually closer to the Chicago flag, one of these two. And it's going to give us the exact same stuff, like right really quickly. And it's funny, it's giving us the GitLab logo instead of GitHub, I think. Is that right? Yeah, it's giving us the GitLab logo. So again, AI is great because it's going to give me this layout. If I love this layout and I really like how this works, this is really useful. But it's not going to be perfect 100% of the time. Like I need to come in and kind of like manicure this. Like the Twitter logo, we need to turn to X. Like it just doesn't like contextually know that without us kind of massaging it a little bit. Okay. we made our own theme. We've done all this different stuff. Let's go back to where I was just a bit ago with my V0. Let me go back to save theme. What I want to do is get back to my generation that we were working on a second ago, and I'm inside of themes now. I wonder if I can go back to here. So React Chicago, it's giving us this font. We're going to be able to change all these different things around, but we're going to, let's just pick this one for conversation's sake, just to keep it going. So we see Meetup sponsors, speakers. This is just V0, okay? So what I want to do is actually want to make this like, improve this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop down here to the magic wand, and I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to say like, make this an image of Chicago. And since I know a little bit about how to write code, I'm just going to like, make this an image of Chicago. And this is now going to be up and running, and now we're off. In the same process as before is where like the model is going to ingest this and is going to say, I need a website that's about Chicago. I need to change this to that and like move these things around. What it's going to do is it's going to build, it's just going to change this image, and it's going to retain all of the other stuff that's down here. And it's going to retain all these different pieces. Okay. So similar to how we had before, we maybe can say like featured speakers, upcoming meetup, like there's always going to be like in the next meetup. So how about instead of our sponsors, what I want to do is change this to like show a bunch, like change to our I don't know, partners. And here's where we can have the O'Reilly, the JetBrains, and the whatever logo from here. So we can say our partners. And here's where we've kind of turned this into a pretty cool looking site. And I don't think I wrote any code yet at all, right? So this is kind of the neat part about this. To the point earlier, we're now inside of like, how do we go from all of this to a website? And here's where sometimes things get a little tricky. And we'll just go and turn this into a website. And then what I want to do is we'll switch from v0.dev and we'll go straight into chat. And chat will be kind of an interesting thing that we can kind of do. And we'll take some components and things from chat and move it over to here. So how do we get this into an actual site? Okay, like what am I going to do next? So the fastest and easiest place to deploy a Next.js application is on Vercel, right? We are the creators and maintainers of Next. Which is a set of superpowers that go on top of React. We can see here, I'm still able to write a bunch of React code. All of this is this is literally just React. It's going to run on a server by default since it's coming from Next. And there's a number of things we can get into there, which is a little bit away from where we are today. But what I can do is if I didn't want to write React, I can actually just write a bunch of HTML too. And this is going to show me all of the HTML that I would need. But here's where I can actually see what I need to do is get this out of this page. I need to bootstrap a React app or a Next application and get this kind of out and into the world. So what I've changed here is add component to a new project. Okay. So here's where this little I that I clicked on is it's going to show me kind of how to do all of these things. And if I want to, what I can do is npx v0 create in this little hash. So to the point earlier of is there a VS Code extension? There is not a VS Code extension, but what I can do is I can actually just like go to this hash here, and this is actually just like kind of me checking into this version, which is kind of neat and kind of a really cool experience where I can say like, okay, just take all this code and put it into a project for me. Since that's a little bit kind of out of scope for today, I'm just going to walk through all of this project of making all of this new. Just so we can kind of see how that goes. And then I'll show how to do that because I want to kind of get like this, I want to get an app bootstrapped first and then kind of go from there. And then we'll pull all this code into it and we'll move on to the next kind of piece, which is getting it up and deployed. So what I want to do is run the following command to create a Next.js Tailwind, all this stuff. And I'm doing all this like kind of like boring, slow stuff just to show how little code I have to write and kind of the exact steps on what I have to do to get this up and running. And once I get it up and running and out in the world, then we can just kind of write more, like do more prompting and do more prompt engineering. But first I kind of need to get this going. npx create next app at latest. Let's call this, and then I'll be prompted to put in a title. So what this is doing is I want to install this npx create next app. So create next app is a CLI to create kind of bootstrap a next app. It's going to give me everything at the latest. It's going to add in TypeScript in Tailwind and ESLint. So TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. It's going to give me the ability to type strongly, so I can actually like pass in like the name, like the type of a parameter when I pass in a function. We can talk about TypeScript another day. Tailwind is a set of CSS classes. So if I were to ever, and maybe I kind of skipped over that, instead of writing CSS in a separate file, what I'll do is I'll just write a bunch of classes on top of my HTML. And we'll kind of mess around with this in a second. And ESLint is a link that's going to help me kind of run my code and kind of give me guardrails within my code. Pause for chat. Yeah, so TypeScript's an option. It's going to come out of the box, and we'll talk about that here in a second. I'm actually just going to call this React Chicago. React, whoa, this thing went crazy. React Chicago. Would you like to use a source directory? The difference between using the source directory and not is totally like up to whoever is doing this. This is just a small like directory that I can add in. Would you like to use the app router? Yes, this is a separate Meetup's worth of content, but the app router is a new paradigm that came out about 2 years ago that's allowing us to run more components on the server. So you remember one of my slides from earlier where I was talking about having a front end and a back end and how they were kind of needed some connective tissue. What we do from the original React is do everything on the client. What we're moving to with Next is moving more things onto the server, because that's going to give us a lot more security and that's going to give us better performance. And we're not going to have to do a lot of kind of like thinking about rendering and calling separate functions like we might have used to if you're coming from an older version of Next. App Router is going to give us React server components right out of the box. I saw a chat come through. I think maybe I'm missing. I'm not sure we're looking at the right window. If you're typing in the command line, are you not seeing this? Oh, sorry. Maybe it's just like super small. Can you see this? Is that better, Nancy? I think you can see my whole screen. Let me stop share and share again. I'll share my whole screen. Is that better? I love it. We're getting the full interactive experience here. Can you see my projects? Yes, no. Yes, awesome. Amazing. Okay, cool. Thank you for calling it out. Okay. So would you like to use App Router? Yes. Let's move forward. Would you like to customize the default import alias? I'm just going to go yes here. It's just like that's kind of the quality of life thing. Oh, actually, sorry, cancel. That's going to come back. We'll talk about this. What's going on here is Next is installing all these things. Again, the very first dependency being installed is React. And then Next is beyond that. So Next is going to give us these superpowers to allow us to do all these things. So I'm going to do a CD into React Chicago. And what I'm going to do next is npx v0 at latest. And I'm going to see if I can actually, is this going to init me a new project or how's this going to look? So what's going on here is it's running a components JSON file. This is important for ShadCN, so that design system that we have. There's a lot of like, that sits on top of Tailwind, and there's a lot of kind of opinions about how design things should work there. And it's basically just going to give us a little bit of, and I keep saying this term superset, just going to give us a lot of opinions on there, and the components JSON is how that's all managed. Okay, so I'm in Projects React Chicago. I'm on main in my machine. And what I want to do now is go back to this here. And I'm actually just going to copy this. And I'm going to go to npx v0 create, and it's at this. What is your project? Oh, cancel. Made a mistake. So what I need to do is actually switch this back to existing project. So npx v0 add. What's going on here is I'm adding in this query here. And let's see if it's going to allow me. What should we name this component? Let's just call this like homepage. Question mark? Cool. The component has been added to your project. To install the theme colors and fonts, visit v0 blah, 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 and follow the instructions under the code tab. Okay. Sweet. So let's go to the code tab. This is where we, under the code tab. Okay, code. It's here, v0, see the documentation. All right. I haven't actually installed anything. So let's do pnpm install. It's going to do all this stuff for me, make sure things get installed. I'm going to pop out of here. I'm going to do a code dot period here, which is going to open this up in an editor for me. And we've gone from nothing to website. And I think I've been talking for like 30, 40 minutes here. I'm going to go into source. I'm going to go into components, and I'm going to go to homepage. And here's all of our code. Meetup, speakers, this thing, this, that, and the other. Let's go to terminal. I'm going to make a new terminal. I've already run this, so let me do pnpm run dev. we can talk about like where all this comes from in a second, but do want to get moving through some of this. And we can see at localhost 3000, let's go. Oh, this is our Next.js page. Okay, so this is giving me a default Next.js page. I need to go import my home page. So let's do a little bit of a walkthrough on Next.js. Components homepage. This is now looking inside of components. Inside of Next.js, what we talked about before is we have our layout file, which is going to have everything for us. The layout file is going to give us sort of like the skeleton of our application. And I can see, HTML lang.english, class name inter. So this is my font. So if we remember, let's go back over to V0 here, and I'm going to go to layout. And actually, I can see all my stuff is in here. Let me copy this. I'm going to go over here, delete this. This is going to give me kind of the same stuff that I had before. Just pretty upset about children for some reason. It has implicit type of any. Let's just call it any. I think it'd probably be something else. There's probably some answer here in the world that I don't want to look up right now. Tailwind config. Let's go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go to my Tailwind config. Oh, it's the exact same thing. All of this is already inside of here. Component.js. This is what we renamed to homepage. And our globals, that's CSS. So here we're just like kind of cobbling pieces together. And I think this globals is actually going to be all the same stuff. We're kind of just cobbling all these things together, making stuff work. And what I'm going to do, and I think this actually should work, is I'm going to go to localhost 3000. Let's go to page.tsx. And instead of this being home, basically what we can do is I'm actually going to move this. I'm going to rename this file. Let's see. Yeah, let's rename this file to just be page. Anytime Next.js sees page, it's going to render a page. Anytime Next.js sees route, it's going to be an API route. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this baby in here, replace, and we're just going to do this live. Let's see, it's super mad at me about something. This is not a default export. Oh, okay. Made a mistake. Undo. Yeah, cool. All right. So the idea here is like, I'm not even writing code. I'm really like thinking very hard. I'm just kind of like figuring out where things should cobble together. Let's do this. Let's go back into page, deleted page. Let me undo. Yes. I lost page. Let's do get status. How do I undelete? Get checkout page. Source page TSX. Okay, I want to undelete this. All right, basic stuff. Don't really know like the ins and outs of everything in Git, but I know how to check out. And instead of doing all this stuff, let's just go import this, our other homepage, just for fun. And I'll just call this homepage, and we're gonna auto import from over here. Turn this off, and I need to close out this. Okay. So now look, you can see this automatically updated for me. Pretty incredible. We've gone from like nothing to like totally up and running. This needs some work. We need to do a little bit of cleanup, but I want to show you guys before we wrap up. And you can see it's starting to get my computer just went to dark mode. We kind of have like an ugly version of basically something that we've done. I haven't written any code, but I want to have an actual website before we wrap up. And I want to do like kind of show what it looks like in chat to move through this a little bit quicker and show how we're going to do from here. So the next piece I want to do is show how this all works in Vercel. So what I've done here is I've hopped into my Vercel. The fastest way to deploy anything outside of Vercel is if I go to add a new project, which you can add a domain, you can add a store, team member, whatever it is. I'm just going to add a new project. If I wanted to use like an AI chatbot or something like that, I could click in over here from our templates. But if I have like pre-written code, like we've just done, I can actually import it from a Git repository. Real quick, let's just go do that. Let's just spin up a Git repository. Let me make a new repository. I don't need a template. I'm going to put it in. I don't need an organization. I'm going to make myself the owner, and I'm going to call it React Chicago. Oops, spelled Chicago wrong. Let's make it public. I don't need any of this stuff because this has already been made for me with Next.js. And essentially what I want to do is I'm going to grab this, git remote add origin. So now what I've done is I've said, okay, inside of reactchicago.git, what I'm going to do is actually like, here's where the code is being pulled from on my machine. I'm going to git add, git commit, adding new stuff. And I'm going to git push origin main. GPSO is my shortcut for that. Okay. Now let's go ahead, hop over here. All of our new stuff that just got added in that we just wrote is just now showing up in GitHub. And now let's do a refresh here, and you can see React Chicago is over here. And I'm going to import this. I'm calling this React Chicago is my project name. Vercel does something cool called framework defined infrastructure, where we can take something like no matter what we write inside of our editors, so like how we write stuff locally, whatever framework we use, Vercel is going to analyze our package JSON, see what's going on inside of there, and go ahead and build framework and build infrastructure based on that framework, right? So if we just did create React app, that would be fine. Docusaurus, all these different things. Fast HTML is one that's a new one. But I'm using Next, so it's just going to say like, okay, here's how Next is going to work. And once I click deploy, there's going to be machinery off in the world that goes and deploys this to the edge. And what's really neat is it's not just going to like go up and be like a giant thing that doesn't exist, but I don't know how to manage. It's just going to go exist like in infrastructure that I still can take a look at and understand what's going on. And it's going to show me how it's doing that. So I can actually look inside of these build logs here. I can see that all this stuff was updated here, all the different things, so versions that are going on, running and pm run build. What's neat about this is I have access to see what's going on here, but I actually didn't run any of this. Oh, and there's an error. Okay, whereas before, like, oh shoot, like maybe there was an error and I don't know what's going on with this. It's like there's an error inside of my homepage. Totally okay. Let's go figure it out. All right, maybe there is like a package that I'm missing. Oh, image source. Okay, this is why it's mad. Lower LCP. So this whole build actually broke. This is crazy because it said, hey, we're not even going to build this because if you use regular image tags, it's going to break your performance. Again, like I'm not even really doing much. That's a Vercel thing that's going on. But like, again, we haven't really coded anything. I haven't thought very much, you know, this is not really something that we're spending a lot of time thinking. We're just kind of cobbling together all these pieces. I know where a lot of these pieces go, but these are all like fixable problems. And I don't necessarily have to spend a ton of time on design. I don't have to spend, and here this is going to be mad at me too. So let's go ahead and escape this and pause. And let's just make this faster on ourselves and do this. And let's see any other images. Okay, I missed this one. Okay, cool. Image. Awesome. This is amazing. We don't have to think about anything. Flag icon with some props. Hopefully it doesn't get mad at me. I have a shortcut here. Let's see. Something's mad about something. Cool, let's go figure it out. So we had like normally what we would do is like spend all this time figuring about this. And then by this point, we would have spent hours running through all this stuff. V0 is allowing us to just kind of like run through and build stuff. Let's see what's working. See what's gonna run. Image source, oh, it requires the width. Okay, let's just blow that away. I'm missing a width inside of, let's see, get image props, image client. Let's go to an image and see let's look at all of our image. We're doing this live. It's pretty sweet. This is the one that's missing it. Equals 500, whatever. Okay, it's the first line of code that I've written right here, besides changing things around. Image with source placeholder. Let's find all the placeholders. That has a width. These all have widths. Width. It's mad at me for something. Oh, this one with 500. Maybe it needs to be this.
I think it wants you to add height.
Do what?
Isn't it saying you have height as a property? You have width, but not height.
Oh, this one doesn't have height. Yep, that's it. It's missing height. Look at this. I have AI on the call with me. Dude, it's great. All right, done. Oh, we're working. Sweet. Literally, like I didn't have to think about any of this, which is great. And that's because that's what you guys are here for, is to help me out. There's still some work that needs to be done on this, but I want to get this up and running, and then we can start cleaning this up to make it look really cool. What I have here is a shortcut that does git add, git commit, and git push, and it actually goes out to a external database that grabs a random NBA player. I was hoping for a Bull. Somebody plays for the Bulls, but I don't even know who this person is. So let's go back to Git. You can see that our most recent commit is going to be this Doyle Patrick. You can see that there's this pending here, and what this pending is coming from is on the Vercel side. So, and the reason why it's pending is because we don't actually have this project didn't actually build. So now we're going to do MJ software Vercel, React Chicago, Doyle Patrick. I don't have a production domain. So here, cannot be escaped within a pause. All right, homepage. You guys are probably tired of me debugging, but we're doing this live. All right, 95. Oh, I missed this one. Okay. We're still not like thinking about much. And a pause. Oops, caps. Go away. Sweet. All right, now we compiled. Now we're happy. Let's do another G go and hopefully we get a bull. Jack George. Okay, whatever. Okay, so in Vercel, this is going to go ahead and build for me. While we only have a couple, I think we only have like maybe 10 more minutes. This Jack George is now building, and this is basically now the new flow that I'm going to have. And I'm going to continue to have this flow. The builds are going to break if I'm doing something silly that's going to make my performance bad. What I want to do is like, let's go to this cool new thing, v0.dev/chat. I think it should redirect me to chat. So our site here, we have a little bit of cleanup that we need to do, but what I want to do, big thing that I want to talk about is like a form, like a contact form. What we want to do is like kind of figure out how to do that and how to wire that up. Is it possible to debug by prompting? Yes. And here's where actually like this will actually be an interesting one. Let's do it here. Yeah, the debugging part of that is probably just the linting rules that I have like instrumented on my side. Great point. Where this is going, and I didn't want to spend a ton of time on this because this is so brand new, is the V0 chat. And what we did, and the reason why I was showing the original V0, if we go back to here, this is going to be more like just generating a lot of React code. Where this is going in the future, after we kind of get all this set up, is I want a form for a meetup that goes to Postgres. Okay, I want a form for a meetup that goes to Postgres. This is way different than I want a website and a visual thing that's going to generate a new looking page for me. I want a form. I want an input, and I want state on that input that's going to change things, and I want it to go to a database, and I want you to have some big opinions about that. So here's where I'm going to hit send, and you can see that this is actually now going to go from like a big website interface to now it's going to be more of like a chatbot interface. And what we're going to do is it's actually going to show me the exact same structure. So it's going to give me shadcn, it's going to give me tailwind, it's going to be in next. And you can see here, I can actually kind of see all these different pieces built out, and it's going to show me like exactly what to do about this, like all my dependencies on the back end. So instead of just doing React, now we're doing like full stack stuff. This is pretty like legit work. And what I've done here is I'm going to click on this and it's going to hide. But if I go over here to the meetup form, this is going to show me what's going on in my preview, so I can actually see the physical thing. And now it's going to show me like all the other steps that I need to make outside of here. So like I showed like how we're actually going to like work through this, and kind of had to do some clunky work to get this up and running. That same process is for if we want to connect this to Prisma, right? So once we kind of get things up and rolling, now I can use AI to really crank. And what I want to do is I want to install Prisma. I'm not going to subject us to this because we kind of spent a lot of time doing setup work. But what I can do is I can npm install Prisma. I'll do that on my project. I can Prisma init, and I can actually say like, okay, my database URL is this. I can go grab a database, whether that's Vercel or whether that's Neon, whatever it might be. Here's my schema, and then I'm going to generate my schema. All this is going to go through. And now it's going to show me how to do all of this with a handler. So remember how I mentioned before, if there's ever like a route.ts or a route.js, Next.js is going to look at that as if it's an API. So it's going to run any API that we have. And here's an example of how this works is if I go to Random Hooper, this is the service that I have that actually shows me the random basketball players. This is just a Next.js app with in the file, instead of being page.tsx, is route.tsx. And it's just going to show me random stuff. So this is different. So like any kind of like API endpoint, this is how this is going to work here. And then it's going to show me how to migrate this. But one of the paradigms inside of Next in the new version actually doesn't even require us to do this. So again, AI is like using some maybe a little bit older stuff. It's like, can you try this? Can you try this with server actions instead of route handlers? Server actions are relatively new, not as well like maybe documented inside of like where the AI is, and maybe its first thing is going to give us something that's like maybe just like a route handler, which is still performance, still doing great, but what they're going to do is it's going to refactor for me. So there was we were talking earlier about coming from Ember to React, and we want to kind of do some different things. So what we could do is we could take an Ember app and say rewrite this for me in React. So let's try that. So, and this is where it's going to show the server actions. Literally, the only difference between the two is that this is actually going to look at, this is just going to be like a function that's called inside of a React server component. So you can see it's called down here, wherever, where did that go? What's the name of this function? Create Meetup. So this is called now as Create Meetup rather than like an endpoint and things like that. And you can see all of this code is the exact same. So here's, let's do this while we have, maybe it's our last thing, and I'll clean up some of the design on this, and maybe next time I'll show that. So what I'm going to do is like Ember.js docs. So I'm going to go here, Ember.js components. What's like a gnarly looking component? Okay, I think that's what this does, is like this thing. Let me take this component. So here's app templates, application HBS, all this. Let's start a new chat. Let me go back to V0. I'll just go to a new chat. And I was going to say, take this Ember code and rewrite it as a full stack Next.js application. Use, name your favorite database, Neon, so use Superbase, whatever. And we'll see what it does. So here's, it's just taking all of this code. I'll rewrite this Ember code as a full stack Next.js application, Superbase backend. So what we're doing here with V0 again is like more like larger contextual things. And this is why I started with V0.dev rather than doing just chat, because the V0.dev is literally just like, is going to focus more on the front end and the visual side. We can do more front end and visual things over on this side as well, but you can see it's going to be more like a software co-pilot. And this is where what we were talking about earlier of why are we doing like prompting the debugging, and this is where like we're going to be closer to that on this side. So now we're basically going from, and it's going to show me here how all this works. So we've gone from basically an Ember app to a full stack React app with just writing a few lines of code. And again, V0 may make mistakes. Like this is not perfect. It's going to require us to look at it and kind of test it out and play with it like I've been doing. But it's not, I didn't really think a whole lot about this, right? Like I just kind of like was cobbling pieces together, and now we're up and running. While we've kind of gone on this other tangent here, let's go back and see what happened with our React Chicago site. Let's see if this is actually going to build. It's probably mad at me about something. Failed to compile, element has any, oh, this thing. Okay, awesome example. Let me turn this thing off. Type error binding, okay. It's a perfect example. Let's go over to, and this will be the last thing I do. I know you guys are probably dying to get your hands on this. Let me go to V0 dev chat, and I'll say, fix this error in my Next.js app. Okay. And in the future, I see a world where things like this are just even more native than they are before. Oh, layout props. I should have known. Okay, so let's go here. Do here, pull this off, grab this. And we're like, okay, we're using AI to do all of this. I'm going to go up to layout. Let's see, layout children, layout props. And there's two layouts is why it's mad. Okay, now we're cruising. This is the time. This is the one. Okay. I love it. All right. Here you go. One more time. Xavier Simpson. I don't know if he was a bull. If anyone knows if he was a bull, then you win a prize. Okay. We started with this site over here. Still fully functioning, still great. We ended up on this. What I really want though is to like add more stuff, change things around, and we can still go do that. So let's let Vercel kind of do its thing. Let's let it run. It should just take a minute. We'll let this kind of run for a second. Let me close this around. Let me go back. Actually, I closed the wrong thing. I'm inside of V0. I'm in here. I can edit stuff around. What I want to do is continue to make changes, or I can actually fork this. I want to change the theme. All of this is available to me right out of the box inside of V0. And I can continue to make, I did this earlier. I said I wanted to pick and change these down here, but what I want to do is make the heading bigger. What I can do is like make the heading all caps, and we can continue on this path. And what I can do is actually just go in and change these things. And I can go at the code level and run these new generations each time. So I think I've been at it for about an hour. Let me go ahead and pause. Let me stop share. Let me open it up to everybody for any questions. We have, the big thing that let's go back. Let's figure out why. Before I fully open it back up, I want to make sure that our site actually builds, and it didn't build this time. Again, let's see. Oh, flag icon. Oh my gosh. The flag. Oh my God, I did this to myself. This was the flag. Oh boy. All right, let's do it again. We're not even like really thinking about much. Let's fix this. And we're gonna get something up in flag icon. Tell me. All right, let's keep this open over here. Here's the flag icon. Okay, cool. It's talking to me. We've imported React at the top. Oh, this is cool. It's actually just showing me the flag icon here. And what I want to do is I'm going to go into the code feature here. Oh, and it's flag props, adding additional props. Let's actually just delete the flag icon just so we can get something up and running. And that's in home page. Flag icon. Class name. Let's just delete the flag icon. We're only using it twice and it's not right. Just so we can get something up and running. I don't want to fight all this. Let's just do this. Again, Gco. That's kind of my thing. Git add, git commit, git push. We're just going to run all this through Vercel. It's going to show me all these things. And it might just be a skill issue on some of this TypeScript stuff. But ultimately, we're going to have a React Chicago site here in a second. And it might not look like the greatest thing in the world, right? Like maybe it was not even as good of a look as, as how it was before. But we built it and now we're up and running and flying through. And I can say, okay, let's figure out, let's make these white. Okay, for some reason these didn't come in. This is text white. Maybe there's some CSS issue. Now I can go figure this out. Instead of individually going through line by line and writing all this, this is all I have to fix. Is why is this button not white? Why is the layout a little bit wonky? We're using AI to kind of do a lot of this. Maybe we're missing a margin. Our CSS is all loading. Our images, we just want to go change this out. Our partners, we want to change out to be this form, right? So in a little, we started at 5:30. We're at 6:50 now. And I can see a green check. We have a AI-ified React Chicago.vercel.app. So definitely still need to work on this. Definitely still have room to grow. But I think maybe even, I think back to when I first started, I was using Bootstrap a lot. And I did a site very similar to this. I think it took me, probably embarrassing to admit this, but it took me a whole weekend to make something like this, a whole day to get the layout right, get the different things going, pick the font, pick the colors, do the things, figure out where all this is. Talk to somebody about what it looks like when you hover this, all this, and now I'm up and running. And then even then, what we would traditionally like to do is, we would use GitHub Pages a lot of times back in the day. Use certain developer tooling things where we'd put it up and not have any clue what was broken. And now what we can do is okay, this is broken. I don't know TypeScript that well. Let me chuck it into AI and it'll tell me the answer. Right. So this is kind of my version of this. I'm sure there's much better, cooler things that are out there that we can dig into more in the future. But we've done quite a bit in not that long a time. And this is exciting. Now this is the fun stuff I want to work on, like layout and finding a picture and things like that. So let me stop share. Any thoughts anybody has? Anybody want to, does it duo with frame or motion animation, animations like frame or motion? I'm not sure. Let's do it. I don't know. If anybody wants to leave, feel free. I know we kind of gone long, but let's play around. This is where chat, I think, will be a little bit better. If it doesn't work, then let's flip over to something else. So let's do V0 chat, in a marketing site that does fly-in animations on scroll. Make it Chicago approved. Okay. So say I'll create a marketing site with fly animations and scroll using a color scheme and design elements that are reminiscent of Chicago. We'll use React and Framer Motion Library for animations. Okay, Chicago innovations. Here's a React component, creates a Chicago approved marketing site with fly and animations and scroll. What V0 is going to do by default is show this hold placeholder thing. And you can actually see this type in. It was doing this type in. It's doing it for us. You see that? Okay, actually, there's two things going on. So there's two animations going on. The text is streaming in from the model onto V0, and it's showing us these things. So since I already actually scrolled in on this, let's refresh this. And you can see this now this flies in, these fly in, and it actually does all this for us. This is wild. This would take me like a week to figure out how to do that. Yeah, this is nuts. Maybe we should make this, how about this? Here's we did a lot of setup code. I wish I would, next time I do this, I want to make sure I don't spend a ton of time burning setup code, time on setup code, but let's do this. Let's get into a little bit of Next.js. Let's have some fun here. So app page is going to be our home page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new page, and I'm actually just going to call this we'll just call this about page dot is this tsx dot tsx, and I'm just going to copy this. 1 second. I'm going to answer your question. I want to just see if we can make this page in a minute. Vercel's going to be pissed at me about this. And I need to import a couple things, and this is feedback for the model that we need to actually import the image tag, the Next.js image, not Lucid React, from, what is it, next image. Let's go back to homepage, it'll tell me. There we go. And it's a named import, whatever this is. And I need to install Framer Motion. npm install Framer Motion. 5 deprecated dependencies, whatever. pm run dev. I'm Ron Burgundy. What do we call this about? Oh, something's mad. Let's see. Stick with me. Use state. Oh, this needs to be a client component. So what I'm going to do is this use client directive. By default, everything is a server component. And yeah, holy cow. it's nuts. We just did this. Okay, maybe we'll use all this code. Here's the thing. What we can do is we can now use all these components that are coming in, and we'll just use it on the other page, or we can use it on some other thing. This is super neat. Yeah, and it's mad about TypeScript and all this. If we were doing this as more than just a live demo, we would be able to, kind of perfect this, and we would save 3 days in 2014 time. Okay, Oleg, is Vercel chat and LLM wrapper or a fine-tuned net? How deep is the context depth? Specifically, how long until the prompt change forgetful? It's a value add as opposed to using popular coding LLM like GPT primarily in the tool interface and presentation. It looks like Vercel is great if you want to work entirely in the browser and use popular frameworks. What I really like about GPT is the ability to blend screenshots, text for prompting. I miss that feature with any LLM that doesn't have it. Yeah, and I think that this is all of what you're pointing at to is this is the reason why I started with v0 the regular v0.dev. Is this is outrageously powerful, where I can go build pages, right? And I can go okay, this is building me a page. And as we saw, there was some clunkiness in terms of okay, taking it out of there and dropping it into a page and getting up and running. That's on me. I probably should have set some stuff up beforehand. I thought it was kind of fun to go through and see how far we could get before we wrote any code. I think we did the whole thing. But there's still some limitations here, right? I can make a contact form, I can make a dashboard, whatever it is. But to your point of how long until it's forgetful, how long until I can actually have this as a side-by-side thing where it's going to take images. And here's where this is where chat comes in, and chat literally was announced last week. So this is where I can actually attach files, and I can let's go through some of my history of some of these things. So our marketing animation, and what I can do is attach files in here, and I can actually continue on this conversation. And this is going to essentially the idea here is that this is, it's not going to supplant ChatGPT, right? You're using ChatGPT for doing math and doing all these different things. But if it's a software assistant that's going to help me do things, this is absolutely the destination I'm going to go to first, right? This Framer Motion thing is crazy. Doing TypeScript errors, this is kind of just the very beginning. A lot of times what we like to say, from what I've seen in the AI world, is this is the worst that this is going to be is right now. It's only going to improve. The models are only going to improve. It's only going to get faster. And this is really neat. And if you guys are doing this at home, one way that you can kind of see it change is you can actually retry and do downvote, upvote. because that's going to help feed information to the model and to the team who kind of runs this. So yeah, so like the screenshots plus text prompting, this is where I think the screenshots will come into play. And we can do a little bit more of this for UI development. This is, I think, really neat. Like, silly stuff like not having the year prompted in correctly. So things like this is like, write the year in the footer with JS, not hard coded. Right. So kind of I think this is kind of what you're getting at, is like, we want it to just be a thing that's with us and not just in the browser. I think there's a world where getting it out of this is one of our biggest challenges, is getting it out of the browser is really challenging. In terms of like, how's that flow look? Where's the beginning? Where's the end? How do we make sure that we're like in the right user account and things like that? I think that's the problem that's, the team's working on it right now. Let's see what the code looks like for this. Gosh, this framer motion thing is so cool. Content. See if it's going to give me a year. I want to see what year. Oh, here's this is actually kind of a cool. You know what I should have done on this is, let me see. There's a thing that I just figured out. So current year Chicago innovations. This is a new thing that I just learned, is if I think I can quote something. If I go into code here and I can say like, I can do this, and I can actually say like, find this. Let me turn off my preview comments, and I can say like, here's my quote, and I can actually take this quote and drop it down into here, and it's like, this section should be font extra bold, all caps, and 10x, and then it's going to rerun all of this for me. So I'm actually like conversationally like putting things into here, and I wonder what the previews go. Well, so yeah. I hope that you got. Oh my god, I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Please add me on LinkedIn afterwards and get in touch with me. I should put my contact information in here. I'll put this in really big. I'll give you guys my my Vercel, and then it's linkedin.com/in/Matt Jared, I think. Maybe Matt Jared 9. This is it. So if you guys need anything after this, feel free to like hit me up on this. We've been at it for about an hour and 15 minutes. Okay, looks like Jack has some stuff that's coming in. Oh, this is sick. This is so cool. And it's all in chat too. Okay, this is sick. We're at Chicago About Us. Here's the next meetup. This is so cool. So, and here's the thing that we talked about before, is I can actually fork this, and now it's a fork. And here's where I want to go into the code, and now we can collaborate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here. It's what I should have done earlier. And again, you guys keep seeing my preview comments. It's a whole other meetup's worth of information. I'm going to quote this. I'm going to say, make this year dynamic. Kind of cool. Awesome. This is so cool. All righty. I'm going to stop share. Anybody have any questions? I shared my email. I'll put it into the chat here. Matt, I'll put it here. And then my LinkedIn, if you guys need anything. That's the only social network that I really follow. This has been an absolute pleasure. Any questions anybody has before we wrap up? Any thoughts? Thanks for bearing with me. We were kind of doing some debugging there. It was really fun. We kind of dipped our toes in a bunch of different technologies, a bunch of different things. There's kind of an unlimited amount of stuff to learn on AI. There's an unlimited amount of stuff to learn on like the web still too. So like we're in like a perfect little spot, and where we can like learn and grow in all these little pieces. So if anybody has any thoughts, I think I don't want to go too long. Bill, do you have any other thoughts, or how are we doing on time? Want to be cognizant of everyone's, like rest of their kind of calendars here. So opening it up to anybody who wants to talk about anything else. Be happy to go for a few minutes longer too, if we have that desire.